Hey, what's going on, guys? Mark Levinsky here, Enter Sky. Just figured I'd do a quick video on how to determine your cash flow for a property. So going off the example I've been using lately, this property, 505 South Mechanic Street in Marion, Illinois. It's currently been on market for about 240 days. And I'm just going to show you how I determine the value of a property in terms of how much cash flow I'll get every month. So I made a quick sheet here, kind of going over what the property will produce in terms of income. I made some quick notes. This is the cash flow. This is the ultimate goal right here. I put my insurance, taxes, principal and interest, net operating income. You get to net operating income from your CapEx, your utilities, missed repairs, property management. Let me just add one more real quick because I forgot this. Vacancy or occupancy. Did I spell that right? I did. I do believe. Occupancy. Okay, so before I told you this property right here was going to rent for roughly about $625 a unit. Was what I determined. So if you say there's 2 units times 625 times 12 months in a year, you will derive about $15,000 a year in revenue. Okay, that's gross revenue. That's the maximum occupancy, perfect year, no expenses, no property management, perfect year gross income. That's before you deduct any of the expenses out. So the next thing I did is I did an equals my gross income times 10%, a 10% number, which is typically what property managers charge. They charge you anywhere between 6 to 10%. Talk to your property manager. Maybe they'll work a deal out with you so they can manage your property for you. But typically the going rate throughout the country, what I've seen is about 10% for small multifamily homes and even single family homes. Additionally, you're going to have missed repairs. I figured it would cost me, based off of what I've seen in other parts of the country with homes that are less than 10 years old, it costs me about $150 a month. So, well, no. You always have a water heater or some shit that breaks from one of your units, and it usually works out to about $300 a year or a month, and then you multiply that by 12, so that gives you about $3,600 a year in expenses. It's pretty normal to see in a property. I'm going to say that it is $150 a month because that's typically what I see. $3,600 a year is what I see for my fourplexes. So I'm going to cut that in half and say that it's 150 times 12. That's typically what you'd see on a duplex. I don't own any duplexes right now. I just own fourplexes. So not the best at valuing that, but I would assume that it's half the cost. Additionally, this property is individually metered for each unit, so there is no utility cost. There's no trash expense, no water, no sewage, no electricity expense. Those can be passed off on the tenant, so that is a zero. Occupancy, like I said in one of my previous videos, I'm assuming that I'm going to lose 1 whole month to vacancy each year in both units. So if I take 11 divided by 12, which gets me a 96 point whatever, throw some parentheses around that, and then I multiply that number times the gross income. I make my effective income is truly, well, no, so then I want to subtract this by 1. So what you're going to want to do for this is you're going to want to first find out what your occupancy rate is. Then you're going to want to subtract it by 1, which will give you your vacancy rate, and then you're going to multiply that by your gross income. That's going to give you your vacancy rate, not your occupancy. Occupancy is how much money you're making minus your vacancy. So I'm losing about $1,250 a year in vacancy. It did show up negative, so I just multiplied it by -1. Or would it be 1 minus? It's 1 minus. That's why it came up negative. So it'd be 1 minus the occupancy rate. That's why it came up negative. But that's, anyways, I digress. CapEx is just simple. I'm going to take a quick look at this property. I believe it's sheet metal roofing. It was just replaced. So that being said, some things that I would probably put money away for would be the carpet, the metal roof, and the siding. So all in all, I'll probably value that at $150 a month times 12, which is going to get me about $1,800 a year is what I would put away for capital expenditures. And capital expenditures are important repairs you have to make, several years from now. You're basically creating a cushion, so when you have to replace the roof in 10 years from now, because it's effectively no longer it's effectively no longer God damn, why can't I think? CapEx is designed to allow you to put money away so you don't have to. So when you have to replace a roof, you no longer have a significant loss in the year that you have to replace the roof. If you've ever replaced a roof, they can range, anywhere between $10,000 to $20,000. And if you don't have your CapEx, where you're putting money away each year for a big expense like that, there's a good chance that if you have to replace your roof 10 years from now, you won't have enough money to cover it. So if you're putting $1,000 away every year that you've allocated specifically to the roof, you'll have enough money to repair that roof. That's what I was trying to get at. I'm sorry, I don't know why that was so hard to say. So what I'm saying, my net operating income on this property is about $86,000. I already know that I was receiving an offer on a mortgage for this for $300. So what I usually do is I have a mortgage calculator on my phone. I utilize, it's called Loan to Me. My interest rate on this that was offered to me without a credit check or anything was 6.5%. So if I'm borrowing $76,000 at a 6% for 30 years, my principal and interest payment comes out to about $456 a year, $456 a month. So $456 times 12 gets me $5,000. The taxes on this property are disclosed somewhere in here. I believe it was down towards the bottom. Tax evaluation. Yes, there it is. $17,000. So $17,000 a year. I'm sorry, $1,700 a year. Like I said, my quote on my insurance was about $1,300. So if you take the NOI and you minus it from the sum of these, which is So my monthly cash or my annual cash flow on this property should be about $178. That's assuming that I'm going to put CapEx away, that I really do have a 1250 vacancy rate, that I actually have $1,800 a year in repairs. And this is on the safe side. I've had years where I've only spent $150 on repairs. I've had years where I've never actually had vacancies. I've had years where I was able to put away CapEx based off of taxes and not based off of, actually paying money paying money out of my monthly cash flow for CapEx. But this is definitely a property I personally wouldn't purchase, simply because it just doesn't make enough money for an annual cash flow to make sense. Maybe if I was making $10,000 in cash flow, I could justify it, or even $12,000 a year in cash flow, and I was only losing my repairs and my property management, and I didn't have a vacancy rate, because then it would be $3,000 a year that I would be making, which is great, because that would currently take my annual cash flow from 25 to 27. But the reality is this is probably only going to make you about $8,000 a year, $8,500 a year. So that being said, this property is definitely not something I would look into for an annual cash flow. Or I would offer a lower price, but I've already talked to the seller, and he's not willing to go below 76.9. There's a reason he's had it on the market for 240 days. It's because he refuses to go any lower. He won't sell it for anything less, which means he's probably in the hole. So that being said, this is not a good property. But that's how you determine your annual cash flow on a property is by going through this. If this is something interested in that you want a copy of, I use a similar fashion for all of my properties to determine whether or not I'm going to have monthly cash flow. I can always tell you that this cash flow number is typically $500 to $600 more. It just is. But that's how you determine your annual cash flow. Alrighty, guys. See you later.